Post-match, West Ham 2, Everton 0 down in London. A comfortable victory for the Hammers as Everton didn't really put up much of a fight whatsoever in that 2-0 defeat. In my opinion, of course, everybody else will have their others. Pete McFarlane's with me once again to look over this one. And personally, Peter, this is obviously not going to be typically as long as we normally do for the post-match, simply because, well, there could well be more news that comes from the club itself, given the fact that the board were down there and the owner was down there. Possible decisions could be made at that level of Frank Lampard possibly not being the Everton manager going forward. But anyway, be sure to listen to this, and we'll have another podcast tomorrow regardless, just to get more views and more people, as we always do. Pete, starting with this game, the lineup. I mean, I don't know what he's doing lineup wise, and to be honest, this might sound weird, but I don't really care because it doesn't seem which direction we go in that he's able to get a tick out of this lot. But he decided to do what he did with the back five. Didn't look handy at all. But I think the main thing I want to get at, regardless of talking about tactics and whatnot, because they didn't really matter in the end, was the attitude of the 11 that he started with. To me, and I know for many others this is really easy to say given the way we are right now, but that looked to me like 11 lads that were just going through the motions of, I won't go as far as saying not wanting to be there, but this didn't look like a side that was absolutely fighting for everybody, as we've known and loved from our football club in the years gone by, even when we've been in trouble, i.e. that Palace game. I hate referring to that Palace game at the end of last season. This didn't feel like that at all to me. It felt like they were waiting for something to happen, something to change. Didn't look like they were playing for Frank Lampard, certainly anyway.
No, it didn't, Dave, and you're right. When you're in this type of relegation scrap, as we are in, you need fighters, and you need players who've got big personalities, and you need players who are gonna step up to the plate. And unfortunately, yet again, there wasn't a single player on the pitch for Everton who was up for that fight. Like you say, players going through the motions, pedestrian. No any kind of attacking intent whatsoever. Certainly when we got to the final third, it was absolutely toothless. We passed the ball around a little bit for the first 20 minutes across the back, and in the midfield we tried to get on the overlap, I suppose. Mikalenko had a couple of opportunities to get the ball in the box, which he fluffed. Couldn't get it past the first man, as he tends not to. But yeah, it was just another toothless, pointless performance. I watch Everton, and I'm watching this team week in, week out, playing the game as if they're playing a training match, with no intensity and no real fight to actually go out and try and win a game. And it's such a trying time as an Evertonian. It's so hard to watch. And I was around for the season under Howard Kendall in 97, 98. I was there with my season ticket, and I was there for some of the other great escapes, even during the Walter Smith days where we were scrapping at the bottom, but we always had fight in the side, and we always had people who'd step up. And unfortunately, I just don't see that to a man in this team.
I mean, it's hard to put in words, and I know we're a podcast, so it sounds really silly from someone to say, but when I see a side like that, I mean, the Southampton game at home, when all of the things happened after it, the game of Wolves as well, where we've lost away. A lot of people put their faith on Lampard and the players after the 1-1 draw at Manchester City. That right now looks like a really freak sort of result that we got there, a really lucky one that we got at Man City from that wonder goal from Gray. And then when I see the reaction of people when we've seen that issue that happened, both after Brighton that we banged on about all week, it's just been totally bizarre. Feels like, I've said it many years on our podcast, it does feel like the Truman Show at times when you're a Blue. And certainly when that happened and we we've spoken at length, haven't we, about the start and finish of it and what people have said have happened or alleged that have happened and whatnot. And I said, I don't know if it was right to say it, about it seemed to have put Lampard to one side when all of that crap happened with the board. Um, as we've seen from the game today, and I know hindsight's a wonderful thing, but it looks to me that he hadn't been doing any. Obviously, he was, but it looks to me like him and his staff have been doing absolutely nothing when I saw the way in which they played, which leads me to think that, like I said, they obviously were doing something, but it looks to me like he's lost these fellas. It didn't look like any of them. And the one I looked to quite quickly over the months that we've had him has been Connor Cody. Excuse me. I've done say a lot of work. I've spoken to the guy in the past, and he's the ultimate football professional.
Yeah.
He's no reason why. There's the exact reason why he's been a captain at Wolves for so many years. You can tell he's a really good, reliable defender, and today, even that, he seemed quite quiet to me. And look, I don't want to put him out on some sort of effort of vitriol on his own, because like we've started it with, I think everybody that we watched today were quite dreadful, really, in terms of obviously not a lack of effort, because that would have been far too obvious to see, but the body language, the way in which they moved, the way in which they passed the ball, there was no real intent to go and win this game. I'm not sure we had a shot on target at all in that match. We're playing a side that were also in the relegation zone. Just looking at this team table now, this league table now, West Ham have moved up to 15th. They are 3 points ahead of us now. Southampton, I think, got a draw at Villa. I haven't seen the results from tonight, from today's games, as we've just started this podcast. Southampton have got level on points with us at bottom of the table. We are
Villa won. Villa beat
But
Southampton
the
in the
Villa,
end.
well, that's obviously
Yeah.
decent for us then.
Southampton had a goal disallowed as well, which was dubious. So we've got a touch of luck there.
Well, a touch of luck, but they're still the side below us anyway, so they don't tend to matter.
Yeah.
The idea, the problem is we need to get 3 below us, don't we? That's all we need.
Yeah.
And Bournemouth, I think, drew the last I saw of it. They drew 1-1, did they, with Forest?
Yeah.
So Bournemouth are 2 above us now, and I think the thing that is just as difficult is the fact that we've got sides above us who've got games in hand on us. As in, Leeds have got a game in hand on us, Wolves have got a game in hand on us, and that goes to that sort of mini 7-team league there is towards the bottom of the league. Leicester, I think, drew 2-2 with Brighton. They're on 18 points, so they're 3 ahead of us with a much better goal difference. I mean, I'm banging on about what the league looks like at the moment, and it's obviously not pretty to look at, and it's upsetting to look at. It is, for all of us as Everton fans. But the other side of this, without it going into any further detail of that game, because I think we both, none of us or nobody who was there has to say much about the performance, because it was dreadful. The players, anyone I looked again, all right, was Onana. Gray, when he got the ball, looked enthusiastic, but everybody else just, like I said to you, that term that come to my mind was, they were going through the motions. And Lampard himself on the sideline looked like he was doing the very same, really. At times when we've watched him at Goodison, he's been very vocal, screaming up and down the line. Didn't look like there was much of that today from him. And like I said, we were playing a side that looked like, had they lost today, they'd have sacked David Moyes. They might well still do that, because West Ham are a bit mad like that. The one thing that I think many people were pointing to, and certainly would have been at the end of the match if they were there in the away end at West Ham, was the fact that the board and the owner was at West Ham. Now, it's angry to see anyway. Seeing them wherever they are is absolutely angry. Cowardly is the term that I've used, and shitbags is the word I've used in recent days. And I look at this now, Pete, and you see them at an away end down in London, which, let's face it, most of them live, really easy for them to get to. Obviously, be nice hospitality that they got at West Ham, at the Olympic ground and all that. The London Stadium is what they like to call it now. Excuse me if you're a West Ham fan listening to this. They've gone in there, and I think the intention, because they know there would have been a lot of focus on them, a lot of cameras, a lot of um, videos of them and whatnot, and that makes it pretty obvious to me that they were there for one thing, and that was an, an execution of the manager. Should we lose, and had we won, to have a general chat with them potentially about signings. Dan Juma, who looks like he's signed for us. I'm not sure where that goes if Lampard gets sacked. Does he look to go to somewhere else? I said that on my Twitter just after it. I feel really sorry for that lads right now, given the offers he would have had as well across the Premier League and beyond. Seeing the board there though, what was your initial feeling? And I'm trying to ask you to answer that, taking away the anger that I think most of us felt when we saw them there.
Yeah, I'll try and contain the anger. Um, I There's no other way to put it than I think they've got a cheek. I think they've got a nerve. After what was said, I mean, we've covered this a lot over this last week. In terms of what have come out after Saturday and before Saturday, I think they've got an absolute nerve showing up there today. I can understand their reasons for it, but the purely selfish reasons. There's no reason for them to be there other than to just show their face and to sort of almost, stick two fingers up to the fans. The fact that board haven't said a thing all week after the hatchet job they did on Evertonians in the build up and since the build up to the Southampton game, and since, the fact that they haven't had the decency to come out and say a word officially to the supporters, but then turn up and sit in the same stadium as those paying Evertonians who've paid through the nose to get there via coach. Some have stayed over. People have bought tickets. And this board of directors think it's okay to just suddenly turn up and sit by them. They don't deserve to sit in the same stadium as those Evertonians, as those dedicated Evertonians who would do anything for this club. These Evertonians who are fighting, for the survival of our football club, and the people who are culpable, the people who have gotten us in this mess, do not deserve to be in the same stadium and breathing the same air as those dedicated and loyal Evertonians.
Do you now ultimately think, and like I said, we're making this one slightly shorter than everything else we talk about really, but what me and Peter, like, we tend to go off on a bit of a tangent. Do you think, looking at that Lampard's gone? I mean, I don't see any other way. I think that all it's a case of now is waiting for when this happens and not if. Given that they were down there, I mean, it's sort of, I'm a bit twixt in between here. Between a rock and a hard place. When I look, they were there. I mean, I'd like to understand the theory behind that, but the insanity of that board, you couldn't really 100% be sure of what was going on there, and why they bothered, because obviously they're going to get shown publicly because of what's happened at the club. So they've obviously been willing to step their feet back into the public to be able to be seen. Is that, I mean, is that even an idea that they've got, that Frank Lampard is sitting there thinking, my bosses are here, we're going to have to put on a good show so I can keep my job? I don't think it's as simple as that, but I don't think they're as clever as that either. In fact, I think all of them are thick. I think they're really, really thick people. And I don't like to say that lightly about people, but at our football club, the way it's been run and the things that people have said, I think it's just a gang of idiots. Now I look at it and think, well, the first thing I thought was that means the writing is on the wall for Frank Lampard should Everton not win this. Even if we'd won this, there's still uncertainty of him. Of course, there is, given the position that we're in and the way in which he's managed the club. And there's it's pretty clear that that's the case, in my opinion, that they're there to put their eye on him. Not that he couldn't away from that anyway, but to publicly do so, I think it's a big statement of we're willing to put ourselves forward with this club. They're doing the things that I think they probably look towards fans and think, you know what, do we actually need to show that we care about this and we want to fix it? That has the absolutely, like we've just mentioned there, the opposite effect on fans. But then if you go to the Lampard issue in itself, I don't think he's going to be the manager when we get back and play Arsenal in a couple of weeks. and then Liverpool. I mean, I have real sympathy for if and when it happens. The manager that takes over from him has got the most difficult task in football, I would suggest, at this time in their career. When do you feel this is going to happen? And it's the impossible question to answer, people. I guess it's the only way we can talk about it. When do you think this is going to get done now? Because I think he's inevitably gone.
Yeah, I think he's gone. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he's gone tonight. But like you say, this border, they're unpredictable, if anything. Well,
Well,
the
I'm
only
I'm
thing
I'm expecting Mashiri to go on
talk sport and give him,
Talk
yeah,
to Jim White and say, "Oh, we keep on backing Machine, keep on backing Lampard." But where this is really, really stupid, and this is why I call them idiots, is because when he was on there chatting the usual crap he comes out with to Jim White earlier this week, he was saying that he backs the manager
yeah, yeah,
inevitably. Come what with, it's that's not verbatim, obviously, but that's the impression that I think all of us got when he sent that letter to the official fan base. That is what I thought when he come out and said that we back the manager. And I know a lot of people say that, when they're playing, like, it's, what is it, that saying that's called, when the dreaded vote of
vote of
confidence.
confidence, yeah.
Yeah, I know that. We've seen it happen before, and it's like it's a cliche for a reason, because it does happen.
But most of the
But,
time, it happens in like in a tweet. It doesn't happen with the owner going on Talksport having a chat with his mate.
but it
You can't.
does happen. It does happen with decently or better ran clubs than us.
Yeah, yeah,
From him saying that, I mean, and again, that word, that insanity that man has expressed, that says to me that he actually means it. He means it with enthusiasm, that we all need to get behind Lampard, and he's not going to sack him. If he doesn't sack him, Everton get relegated. And I'm saying that like it's a fact, but I don't see how that changes if he's still the manager, regardless of what players we sign in the next week or so. He's gonna go. It's inevitable that he goes. It's just a question of when, not if anymore. Like I mentioned at the start of this podcast, I agree with you. I don't think. I'd be surprised if they don't sack him before Monday, maybe on Monday. And who knows with these? They might all go on holiday tonight or something, mightn't they? The way that football club is run. But sorry to interrupt you. By the way, people, carry on with what you were saying then about him. It wouldn't surprise if he goes tonight and so forth.
yeah. Just say, well, it wouldn't surprise me if he did go tonight. But then, like you say, that Farhad Moshiri is a maverick. I don't know what
Very
sort of.
polite, though.
Yeah, that's the nicest way to put it. I mean, one thing I would say that if there's any sort of positive, if you could call it that, from the fact that the balls were there today, it's the first time Farhad Moshiri's been there since, was it August 2021? I am convinced the Farhad Moshiri only gets his information probably from Bill Kenwright and from people at the club. I'm convinced he doesn't actually really understand quite how bad things have gotten. And I think he's seen that firsthand today. And one interesting thing I saw on Twitter before, and this might just be, just something completely random, but I kind of, in terms of body language and in terms of, when you can sort of tell how people are, someone pointed out that it's the first time that Farhad Moshiri hasn't actually been sat next to Bill Kenwright. It looked like he couldn't get any further away from him if he tried.
Well, he was next to Sharpie, wasn't he, himself,
Yeah,
Machiri?
yeah. And if you would have thought if there was some kind of united front needed, and if Farhad Moshiri was 100% backing Bill Kenwright and was totally happy with him, I would have expected him to be sat next to him. But I'm assuming maybe Mr. Moshiri has had enough of Kenwright as much as the fans have. But as I say, there's no hiding from it now. There's no buttering things up, or there's no blagging to be left to be done. Farhad Moshiri's seen with his own eyes today. We faced a very poor West Ham side, and that very poor West Ham side easily beat us. We were unable to bring anything off the bench which could really impact on the game. We are in dire straits. Now we can see what's going on the pitch week in, week out. We watch every game. We can see how toothless we are in terms of a football side. we aren't privy to what's going on behind the scenes. So we don't know just how bad it is financially. We can guess. We can sort of go off leaks, and we can go off things that come out in the press about the Premier League have got us under scrutiny in terms of financial fair play, but we don't really know for a fact just how bad things are. Well, the one man who does, or one of the people who does, is Farhad Moshiri, and today's probably the first time in 18 months that Farhad Moshiri has got the full picture, where he will understand exactly what is going on. He will be able to look at the football inside, realise. I mean, at one point in that game when Southampton were drawing, we were bottom of the league. Doesn't make any difference still, but psychologically we were bottom of the league. And Farhad Moshiri, if he was in any doubt about whether he thought the fans were right to question the board's decision making, I don't think he'd be in any doubt now. I don't think you can argue with it. And I've seen a lot of people this week, pundits. I won't mention which, I won't mention which news sites have been discussing it, but there's been a lot of people who've tried to throw this back on the fans. And I'll repeat what I said the other day: a well-run football club in the Premier League doesn't struggle to buy players, and a well-run football club in the Premier League doesn't have fans protesting against the board. I think Farhad Moshiri, I'm hoping he's had a really, really, really big wake-up call today. Although I would have thought he should have had that when we survived by the skin of our teeth last season.
Just as you're talking on there, you might have heard me sort of laugh a little bit, Peter, as you were saying what you were saying then. And Sky Sports have caught up with Bill. Listen to this now. This is him being approached from Sky.
Bill, is that it now for Frank, do you think? It's been a tough run of results, hasn't it?
It's been a bad run of results for us all, and for Frank, but no, I would never ever say that to you, ever.
But things have to change pretty quickly, don't they?
Yeah, we've just got to start winning, haven't we? It's bad time.
Mr. Moshiri, hello. Is it about time for Frank now, do you think? It's not my decision.
Bill was just about to get in the car that was taking him away from the stadium. He was asked and did as usual. I don't know, is the way in which he does, the way he talks. He was saying he would never tell anybody had a manager been sacked, which doesn't indicate to me that he has or he hasn't done anything really. I think it's a bit of nonsense where he should really be taking charge of this, both him and the owner. And then he just simply turned to Gary Cottrell from Sky Sports News and says that it's bad times, which is really, really ironic considering the...
Oh, these are the bad times, are they?
I know, because he said the good times recently, hasn't he? He's been known to say that word as well. And then following that, Gary Cottrell runs over to Farhad Moshiri, and he basically, not verbatim, is asked by him, is this time for Frank Lampard? Is he essentially... Everton need a new man? And Farhad Moshiri replies and says, that's not my decision. What? I mean, if you're not already what's left of your hair out, because I don't mean you, Pete, as well, by the way, because I know we both run short and our heads full of hair, don't we?
Evertonians, yeah.
Exactly, mate, exactly. Anybody else is going to be at the very least pulling the hair out if there's anything left that they've got watching Everton. But that, in a nutshell, shows you the insanity of this football club, doesn't it?
Did he genuinely say that's not my decision?
That's exactly what he said. That's exactly what he said at the end of that.
Is it our decision? Is it the fans' decision again? Is this?
I mean,
or has he got to speak to Uncle Usmanov? What's going on?
Yeah, is it Denise's decision? Whose decision is that if it's not the owners, who makes every other decision? Apparently. And then Bill beforehand has said that I would never tell you that. Speaking in riddles, these people are meant to be the owners of football clubs. I don't understand it, mate, and I don't know how anyone's supposed to know if those two don't know. Who makes that decision now? If he says it's not his,
probably the Premier League, because we can't afford to sack them. It's like.
Just an abysmal owner that we have, mate, isn't it?
I mean, I'm flabbergasted, Dave. I'm absolutely, I for once in my life, I'm stuck for words.
Do you see any
think.
other club with an owner who's spent $500 million on players in a really, really poor way? And look, obviously, the people he's employed have been crap. We know all of that. We've been through that list of managers and players we've signed and director of football and all that stuff. But obviously, he's been heavily involved in that. And the irony is there that he's made the decisions, but he's saying that the one to potentially sack the manager that is being woeful for us in recent months, he doesn't make the decision of that. Send me the answers in a postcard to anyone else who's listening to this. But, well, if you're to believe those two gentlemen, which I don't think any of us do, but if you do, Frank Lampard's not going anywhere because they don't have anybody who can make a decision at this football club. I mean, it's flabbergasted anyway. People, I think we'll leave it there, mate, because I'm ready to start punching the wall anyway myself when we're doing this, mate. So this microphone that I'm recording now probably won't stay in my hands for too long if we carry on with all this. But no doubt we'll be back as soon as, or as if there's any news, or if there's someone that comes forward that makes a decision at Everton Football Club. You'll be first to hear it from us. And yeah, stick with us as you always do anyway. Thanks so much for listening to us. And we'll be back with another show tomorrow at some point about something that somebody decides who are in charge of Everton that they can make that decision. We might even have a sign. It might be the.
They might do a Twitter poll. They might do a Twitter poll on the official page.
If I was that fella that signed for it, that Dan Juma, I'd have been on a flight straight out of Everton and the city of Liverpool and trying to find a different club. Especially if you heard that few minutes of ridiculous comments from our owner and our chairman, Bill Kenwright, just absolutely ridiculous. So we'll leave it there for now. No doubt there's another episode to come from the Blue Room as this Everton saga continues. We'll speak to you and see you soon.